Hey everybody, Kyle Goethe here from GoatFilmReviews.com and the Kyle and Nick on Film YouTube channel, which you're currently watching. It's Saturday, and you know what that means, especially in the month of October. It's Saturday Scares with Kyle. And today we're talking about the 1966 film directed by John Gilling. It's a Hammer horror film, and it's one of their rare zombie films? It's Plague of the Zombies from 1966. Now you might be saying to yourself, Plague of the Zombies from 1966? I thought Night of the Living Dead had zombies in 1968. True. And Night of the Living Dead did create the modern version of the zombie as it would. But I think this film has its perfect alignment here right between films like Creature with the Atom Brain, another film we recently talked about, and Night of the Living Dead, in that it's kind of that final nail in the quote-unquote like voodoo cursed zombie, as it will. It's definitely the closest thing to a Romero zombie that we would see, while not fully being in that transitional period. The film still opens with magic spells being done to conjure up the dead. So we still have that element from things like White Zombie or the more scientific Creature with the Atom Brain. But it also has one of the coolest zombie sequences, including, I think, I'm pretty sure this is the case, that this is the first mass zombies exiting the grave film that I could think of or find online. If you found one better, please comment down below because I'd love to know about it. Zombies are oftentimes seen or discussed as being rising from the grave, but so few zombie movies actually do it. Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2, one of the Resident Evil films did it before. The aforementioned Zombie 2 from Lucio Fulci, they all feature elements of this, but it's not something we see a lot. In fact, I don't think a single Night of the Living Dead or sequel film from Romero's world ever really has that. So it's kind of something unique in that sense. These are zombies in the traditional sense, but they were still conjured up by the magic spell, if you will. So that's kind of something that it's the final note, really, in some ways, because 2 years from now, the zombie as a term would be completely overrun with Night of the Living Dead, and that's where we'd have the modern day zombies. So I think on its own, this film has an interesting place marker, but it feels like a stepping stone in many ways, along with Creature from the Atom Brain, in that just slight movement in that direction. So I think that's pretty fascinating. The film is directed by John Gilling, who also directed one of the Mummy films for Hammer, The Mummy's Shroud, which is, funny enough, the first movie I watched this year. My Letterboxd account tells me every time I go to my stats page that you watched The Mummy's Shroud on January 1st. It stars Andre Morel as Sir James Forbes. Basically, there is a outbreak of deaths in a little Cornish village that people can't seem to figure out what's going on. So one of the local doctors reaches out to his mentor to kind of help him discover what's going on, and brings him to the small village with his daughter, adult daughter, who comes to check out what's going on. They discover that a number of the graves have been emptied, and they start to figure out that there's more going on here than they know. Like I said, Andre Morel plays the mentor doctor, Sir James Forbes. Diane Clarid plays Sylvia Forbes, the daughter, who comes with him along the way here, and kind of serves a role as, I mean, in many ways, she is the damsel in distress. She is kind of brought in here. She is picked on. She is taken advantage of. And she ultimately becomes the thing that we're trying to save at the end of the film. There's also some appearances from notable people like Michael Ripper, who is a kind of a Hammer mainstay. He played Sergeant Jack Smith, so he's the cop involved in the film. And if you've seen enough Hammer films, you recognize Michael Ripper when he comes on screen. It's not something I immediately pull his name out of my head, but I always see him and say, oh, that guy's back here again. So this is an interesting one here. It was shot back-to-back with another John Gilling film, The Reptile, which is notable for its really kind of over-the-top and silly creature design. And in fact, it was marketed as a double feature with Dracula's Prince of Darkness, which I think is probably the best Dracula film from the Hammer era. I don't know. I mean, I do love horror of Dracula, so it's hard for me to say for certain that Prince of Darkness is the best one, but it's definitely damn good at what it's doing. So I think it's in good condition with that. Now, the mystery element itself is rather interesting. There aren't a ton of zombies, but when they do show up, they are incredible. Some of the best makeup effects that Hammer has done. It's too bad they didn't do more zombie films, because honestly, I think they really knocked this one out of the park. I would have loved to have seen some recurring element. I mean, I know a good chunk of the Mummy films aren't really related either, so why not include this in some way? It takes place in 1860, and you may recognize the Forbes Mansion, where the beginning of the film is, because it's actually also the same location as Spectre Island from Russia with Love, which was the second James Bond film. It's where they're hunting James Bond at the beginning of that movie. It's kind of fun to see these locations that end up getting used multiple times. We talked about that last time with vampires as well. This movie has a lot of things going for it in terms of the story, because they don't necessarily tell you who is in charge of this cult that is raising the dead. And they don't even really tell you if you need to know or if it's someone that we're going to discover until you discover the answers to the film. And I think the answer that there is satisfying, maybe because they don't inherently try to convince you that you have to figure it out. It's more that we just will find out. So we're not looking for clues or what people are going to say. And when it comes down to it, it's something that, sure, I guess I could have guessed that that was the case. But the reveal of who is actually the leader of the Raising the Dead cult is pretty fascinating, and it does work as a nice little reversal from my expectations, because I think any of the people in this film could have been the person doing it, but this was a satisfactory explanation all the same. I think the zombie scenes work. I think they're definitely creepy and unusual. I think there's a good rapport between Forbes, played by Morell, and Dr. Peter Thompson, played by Brooke Williams. They have a good kind of mentor-mentee relationship, and a good push and pull that you can definitely tell there's some strain in that relationship, but I think it works pretty well for them. Overall, I think Plague of the Zombies is a good time. It's got atmosphere for days. I think that's, again, it brings in that classic Hammer atmosphere that you can totally see on the outset. This is a Hammer horror film, and it's got that great fog, that great ambience, that great atmosphere. And it's definitely a very moody kind of film, because it doesn't really spend a lot of time in the blood and guts of it all like a later zombie films would do. But when it is there, it is powerful stuff, and it does have a bite to it. And I don't mean that literally, but it does certainly have bites to it, including a great shovel decapitation that you would actually see a similar version of in Day of the Dead. This one back in the 60s had to get reduced from 4 hits to 1, but whatever, it's still pretty good. Plague of the Zombies is a delightful little movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I'm definitely interested in checking it out again. Other YouTuber from the Cobwebs channel, Daniel, actually is the one who kept harping on me to check out this film. He was showing it off in every single one of his top 10 films that could possibly feature Plague of the Zombies. And so when I saw there was a sale on Shout Factory, I had to dig out and get my own copy of. And I definitely recommend checking it out for yourself as well. If you're a zombie fan, this is a unique one. And it holds its place in history, much like the aforementioned Creature with the Adam Brain. I definitely would recommend checking out Plague of the Zombies, and do it this month. All the spooky season going on. But don't worry, because next week we're also going to come back with a 1950s film. Before John Carpenter had a take at this material, it was Christian Nyby who directed the first version of this. We're talking about The Thing from Another World from 1951. That is next time on Saturday Scares with Kyle, so make sure to come on back and join us then. See ya.